Thank you for joining us for another episode of Black Women in Horror. I'm your host, Alyscia Cunningham, independent filmmaker, impact artist, and an all-around storyteller. Black Women in Horror is a podcast celebrating the voices and creative power of Black women in the horror genre, one of my favorites. From filmmakers and writers to actors and horror lovers. I'm excited to introduce you to today's guest, the brilliant Breanna Taylor. Breanna R. Taylor is a Milwaukee-based interdisciplinary artist, passionate about dance, film, performing, and writing, specializing in film impact work and production. Breanna is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison and New York University with a BA in Afro-American Studies with an arts emphasis and a master's in performance studies. In 2020, she co-designed Langston League's HBO Lovecraft Country Unofficial Syllabus, as well as the 2021 companion guide for DaCosta's Candyman, which is in collaboration with Jordan Peele's MonkeyPaw Productions and NBCUniversal. Okay, Breanna. She also co-wrote the curriculum for an Emmy Award-winning documentary, When Claude Got Shot. Breanna's recent work includes co-writing a reparations toolkit and discussion guide for Color Farm's documentary, The Big Payback, and the discussion guide for Netflix's African Queens in Jinga. To stay true to her love for horror, she wrote the curriculum for The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, which was screened during the 2023 Milwaukee Film Festival. Most recently, Breanna served as the associate producer and curriculum coordinator for the short film documentary Black Strings, directed by the Milwaukee filmmaker Marquise Mays. She has previously served as a film co-facilitator for the Black Lens youth group Souls of Young Folks. Currently, she is working on her first narrative horror short film, In Holding, a Love Story, which is set to be released by 2025. I'm so happy to have you, Breanna. Welcome to Black Women in Horror.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I have different segments. The first segment is creative process and inspiration. So
Mhm.
just personal story. What's your zodiac sign?
I am a Libra, but I always say I'm a Libra with so many water placements because I feel like they influence a lot of what happens in my life.
Yes.
So I am a lot of air and water.
That's amazing because actually that helps with the next question. So how does your personal experiences influence the stories you create with horror? And do you think your sign influences the direction of your story?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like the more that I have gotten into like really understanding my birth chart, and the placements that I have, I really do feel like it has kind of like catapulted me further into the topics that I'm interested in. For example, I have so many Scorpio placements. And Scorpio, being a sign of constant transformation,
Mhm.
it's the only sign with levels of evolution. Like um I was like, wait a minute, that is so interesting. Like when I was really learning about
Mhm.
it, but they're the only sign that kind of goes through these different phases of evolution. And Scorpios are, striving to become more like the phoenix, or they should strive to
Mhm.
become more like a phoenix, which, goes through a constant death and rebirth cycle. But instead of being held back by this process of like dying and coming back to life, it is something that they have to learn to like transmute everything that they're going through in order to like prepare for that rebirth. And if you are not ready for that, that can be a very, very, very painful process to keep going through. It could also be one that if you are resisting, it is not going to make your journey easy. So, I really do feel like that in
Mhm.
a lot of ways has influenced how I have been approaching my creative process over the last few years, especially since lockdown, I would really say. I feel like a lot of us kind of went inwards during that time. And for a lot of us, I think it either shaped how we're kind of moving and navigating through the world right now. I think a lot of people took that as a time to just like, you know what? I'm going to redirect myself, where I'm going
Right.
to sit down and focus. I'm going to slow down from having to be on the constant hustle and bustle of life. And I think at least for me, that helped me to understand like, or at least try to get some clarity. I think I went inwards for clarity to be like, what are we doing? Like, love film, we love dancing, we love performing, we love writing, we love so many things at once that does not always give us the space to like deeply
Mhm.
explore something. So, like, what can you offer at least maybe like majority of your energy to without like not being able to show love to like other things that I've done?
I think you actually answered the next question, which was what drew you to horror. So this is what drew you to the horror genre?
My mom is actually the person who got me into horror because my mom is an
Oh,
avid horror watcher. Like,
nice.
Yes, so my mom is the person that did that for me. And so like it's funny because my initial introduction to horror, I wouldn't say I hated it, but
Mhm.
I just remember like some movies I was like, okay, I can watch that.
Right.
And I remember one movie in particular, they laugh about me to this day. Um, I don't remember how old I was, maybe somewhere between like 5 and 6, maybe. But Darkness Falls had just came out and they were watching it at my grandfather's house. And I don't know what it was, but when they finally revealed like the monster, I screamed and they could not get me to calm down for like 15, 20 minutes. And so
Oh, wow.
she's just like, it's so funny thinking about that because she was like, because now you're doing, like you like if you're not making horror films or you're not like analyzing horror films, like you're
Right.
trying to figure out how to understand and like really push it forward in a way where like horror is getting the respect that it deserves. So
Right.
it's interesting how that path came about, but I would definitely say Lovecraft Country is what like watching the show, but then also like meeting Erica and seeing the work that she was doing already for it, which I was also in search for. Um, that was what did it for me. Like that was that light bulb moment of like what you're looking for is also looking for you.
Nice. Well said. Beautifully said too. And I like how you intertwined your the direction of your stories based on your zodiac sign too. So can you walk us through your creative process when developing a new story or script? What does that look like?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I feel like I noticed one thing about myself. Well, I noticed a lot of things about myself, but it's one when it comes down to creative process. It's as long as the topic is interesting to me and it speaks to at least one of 10 million of my passions.
Right.
I'm game. Like I'm locked in. Like I'm instantly like, let's figure out a way to get this going. And I would say at least with filmmaking itself is like being the person that's coming up with the story.
Right.
I feel like maybe that's actually been the hardest for me when it comes down to like, oh, let's create some sort of like educational guide or some sort of like lesson plan or some sort of like content post or some sort of something that like can reach audience members. I feel like that's easier for me to do.
Okay.
But like, actually crafting a story has been a lot harder for me, which is why the creation of my short film in holding,
Mhm.
that was a 2-year process. And I mean, like, film in general can take a long time to create. Like
Most
there could
definitely.
be scripts on people's desks from like 10 years ago that are just getting greenlit. So, 2 years in hindsight isn't very long at all. But I think for me, it felt long because initially I wasn't even going to try to make a horror film,
Mm.
which was weird because they were just like a lot of my friends at the time who I was talking to it about, they were like, bro, like you love horror film. Like, why are you not making a horror film? And I was like, I don't know, y'all. I was like, I think maybe like I just respect the genre so much. I love and like the movies that I love within the genre. I'm just like, the goal isn't to necessarily replicate everything that they've done, but like it is for me to create a story like at the level that I see a lot of those films and that work at. So it's like I think it was just me just trying to be a perfectionist. It was me just
Mm.
getting in my head and being like, oh my gosh, it's not going to be good. And in hindsight, no one's first film, maybe no one's first couple of films are like their magnum
Are the
opus.
best. Right.
Like they're not the best. But the thing is you just do it.
Absolutely.
And so I think at that point I was just like, you know what? I think the reason it was taking so long, the script to even come to me, because like I had an idea, I
Mhm.
felt confident about it, but it was a connecting piece in the story that I could not figure out to save my life. Like I was sitting down with so many people who like are also filmmakers who've been doing this work for a long time. And I was like, y'all, I cannot find the missing piece of the story.
Mm.
So they were just like, okay, let's go basic. Let's talk about the idea. Then maybe we can work backwards from
Break it
there.
down. Right.
Right. So when I went to do that, they were like, I ain't gonna lie to you, this kind of sound like a vampire film or, just
Mm.
like it sounds like, yeah. And I don't know what it was, but as soon as they said that, it clicked. And it was almost like I had to hurry up and get to my phone because I was like, wait, 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 y'all. I was like, hold on. The ideas are kind of just like moving now. I was like, let me just write
Right.
them down so I don't forget it.
Right.
And so from that time, I think within at least 2 weeks, I had a rough draft of a script.
Nice.
And then from there, just kind of moving through it, talking through the story. By the top of 2024, by like February 2024, I had a full script.
Nice. Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, so I would say that time in general, it took me about a month overall, to get something on the page, to get something to look at and start visualizing. And then from about February of 2024 to about August, I was kind of like in still like, development mode. I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like I do need to do this film, but like the program I was in at the time, that was like um essentially like an accelerated program for filmmakers in the city. They had shut down due to some funding issues. And so I was like, dang, so like that program's done. And then I had just quit my job. And so the plan that I had worked out to kind of like get the film made was like falling through. And I was like, y'all, I don't know how I'm gonna pull this off no more.
Mm,
I was excited. I was like, the top of the year just kind of gave me the energy I needed to like now you fast forward maybe about like 6 or 7 months later, and I'm just like, how am I getting this film done?
right.
And
Yeah.
so luckily, a lot of the friends that I had talked to as I was like still developing everything, that was just like, bro, like we just gonna get the film done. Like we'll
Right.
worry about the money later. Like
Mm-hmm.
we'll get this film
The
done.
best thing to do.
I
Right.
swear. And at that point, like I had helped out so many times for people. And I was just like, babe, don't worry about this money thing. So I don't know why I was so like stubborn
Concerned.
about
Yeah.
it when it came to my project. But like my friends were just like, we're getting this film done. So start making your requests,
Right.
and let's just get it done.
That's beautiful to have friends like that too.
Yes, yes. I swear, like without them, without the team that I was able to assemble, that film really wouldn't have gotten done.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and I would say by the end of August, I was already in pre-production. We shot the film at the top of this year, actually, because we were supposed to do it in November and December of 2024. But we had some scheduling issues with some of our prop rentals. And so it really worked out in hindsight because we had crowdfunded, and our crowdfunder was not supposed to end until December. And so I was like, well, honestly, it makes sense that we're going to get delayed because we wouldn't have access to those funds until after anyway. So
Okay.
it really did work out to where we were able to shoot the film. I swear, I don't want to jinx myself, but I swear that was the smoothest film production that I feel like I could have curated for
Oh,
my
that's nice. That's nice. Claim that. That's good. When you have a smooth
team.
production, can't ask for nothing better.
Like it was, and of course, there were some hiccups. I would say our hiccups was
Right, of
being
course.
delayed, but even that, like looking at that now, I was like, that was more of a blessing than a delay or anything, like a hiccup, if anything. But if we were to count it
Wonderful.
as such, there were very minor hiccups that I felt like went into the process of getting the film made. Um,
Hmm.
our cast was great, our crew was great. Um, I just really couldn't have asked for a better team. Like it was great.
Wonderful. That's
So I was
great.
thankful to get it done. And now
Nice.
we are in post.
Good. Congratulations. And
Thank
and shout out
you.
to Brianna's friends. That's amazing to have friends like that. That's
Yes, shout
just
out to
pushing
my
you along.
friends. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
My whole team, our cast and crew, like I everybody was just dope.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
loved it.
So now challenges and representation. We'll get into that topic now. So what unique challenges have you faced in the horror genre, and how have you overcome them?
I want to say I feel like I'm still overcoming them.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Um, yeah, I had actually submitted a chapter proposal to be published. And I'm actually working on it now, but it's looking at the essentially the roles as well as the representation of like Black women and girls in like
Hmm.
mainstream zombie films and TV shows.
Right.
And actually I ain't even gonna do that. It's actually I'm just focusing on film, like major, like mainstream film.
Right.
Because when you look at a lot of the television shows, I feel like I'm seeing definitely more Black women in like zombie apocalypse settings
Right. Yep.
in TV shows. And,
Hmm.
obviously, the most notable one is Michonne in The Walking Dead, played by
Hmm.
Denai Guerrera. And like, she's amazing.
Hmm.
Um, and so it wasn't until I was watching that I realized I was like, huh. I'm seeing us in television shows, which I
Right.
think maybe just the landscape of like film and television right now is just, I feel like we're getting a surplus of television shows in general.
Right.
And movies are kind of like seem like they're a bit lagging behind. And I think I feel like it's a whole lot of reasons why that's happening, but I think more specifically looking at, like representation in certain situations, I was like, I'm not seeing a whole lot of Black women in zombie films.
Hmm.
If they are, they're more indie, which is great. Um, but I feel like 9 times out of 10, when we're talking about representation, we're talking about at the mainstream level.
Right.
So I have been like kind of just sitting with that for a while, wrestling with that for a while. And I was just like, why am I so like naggy right now about Black women and girls and like zombie films right now? And um And funny enough, I had literally been doing like research around like zombies since 2020 because there was a short film that I had put together for my master's thesis, which was overall talking about the connection to water, bodies of water in Black communities, specifically looking at those of us who are descendants of enslaved peoples. So
Right.
like understanding our relationship to water, like understanding that like historical trauma. And then I was like, this is great. And I was like, but I feel like I need a horror element in here
Mhm.
somewhere.
Right.
And so I landed on the zombie.
Okay.
And funny enough, I was sitting here and I was like, now, Breanna, wait a minute. Now, how do zombies, oceans, slavery, all this stuff, how does this go together? And I
Right.
was like, I was like, I'm gonna figure it out. I said, because it's not calling to me for no reason. I was like, I'm gonna figure it out.
Hmm.
And sure enough, did my research. And I'm actually still doing my research and I've been learning more and more about it. But essentially, what we now understand to be zombies today is, and I love George Romero, but it is
Hmm.
in fact like somewhat of a cultural appropriation.
Okay. Right. Yeah.
And so the zombie is actually has its roots in Haiti. And
Mm.
it's looking at specifically of like systems of enslavement. Essentially the zombie, if we were looking at it from its historical point of view, is someone who has like been subjected to servitude.
Mm.
So they're no longer like in control of their bodies, but instead it's being controlled by someone else, or like this sorcerer or sorceress. And so we start seeing like these early development of zombie films and like as early as like 1930s,
Right.
with White Zombie, that I think that came out in like 1932, which is
Hmm.
like looking pretty much at like the more supernatural elements of the zombie, which is where it comes from.
Hmm.
And it's coming out of these communities of folks that are being enslaved.
Hmm.
So fast forward, we get Night of the Living Dead, which comes out in 1968.
Right.
And essentially, George Romero, I was reading through a little bit of an interview that he had done, and he was saying he didn't even want to call them zombies because that wasn't what he saw them as. He saw them as ghouls. And so
Hmm.
after that, we get what's that, Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah. I
Where
think.
they actually do then embrace calling the creatures or these like antagonists zombies. And so from there, it switches the whole meaning of what it means to be a zombie, because filmmakers earlier than that knew it to be like these very supernatural beings that are like being used to complete a thing for someone else on their behalf or like do their bidding. But George Merrill
Hmm.
shifted the landscape of zombies. And so when you say that now, we think
Right.
about, flesh eaters, these
Yeah.
creatures that are like roaming, or I guess now running, because now we got these
Right.
running and walking.
All right.
But you have these beings or these creatures that are now a new creation.
Mhm.
And like I feel like in this instance, because I do love horror and I primarily love creature features,
Right.
and
Okay.
specifically zombies. I love zombies. Now
Mm.
I didn't at first.
Okay. Right.
The thought of being eaten alive was crazy to me and it was scary. And I was like, why
Yes.
is nobody freaking out about
Really.
it?
Right.
Especially now that they're making them even more realistic, like just like, oh, the virus came about from food or like things that are being released into the air. And I'm just like, well, that's what's happening now, and ain't nobody scared.
Right. Yeah,
Um,
right. Yeah.
but yeah, I think no, like coming to learn that history now has been so interesting.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, when we think about it like that, it being kind of removed or uprooted from its historical context, um, my question then when I was thinking about it, I was like, where are the black women and girls in these films?
Right. You
Um,
actually went right into the next question. So, but you actually answered it and you answered part of it, the other question, but I still want to ask it. So, how do you address stereotypes in your work and what do you hope the audience takes away from the portrayal of black characters?
yes, the way I see it, I've always said to people, who's asked me anything about that, like stereotypes in general, I feel like have been kind of like how can I put it? It's been kind of like a stunt in a sense of
Okay.
like trying to cap the level at which you can be nuanced, like almost like I don't like I always tell people I think regardless of what we do, how we try to navigate, we're going to be fulfilling somebody's stereotype.
Right.
Like if I speak out or if I say this or I speak up for myself, I'm automatically an angry black woman.
Yes.
So like
Yep.
if there's a black man who's now assertive in the situations in which he feels like he needs to be, he's aggressive, like
Right.
or like it's just even if the context behind it is justified, and we've seen that a lot too of like black people through stereotypes or because of stereotypes we're not allowed to move in certain directions because of the fear of being labeled as such. But
Hmm.
I think regardless of how we move we're still going to be labeled as such, so at least
Always.
how I'm just like I see stereotypes as like things to be like, well, I don't think we should shy away from them, but in fact, lean into them some more. Because to be like, well, yeah, I am angry in that sense. And here's
Mhm.
why.
Right.
Or,
Yeah. Well said.
like, I am aggressive right now about that. And here's why. Because I feel like it's not going to change. Like, I feel like once someone has their mind made up about you, that's it, and they can change their mind about that. Like, that's not your job or your responsibility to try to shift someone's perspective, especially when they're dead on being wrong about you. I feel like at least trying to do that in my work, like I've actually have been really loving this idea that I've been like simmering with for a long time now, but like I really would love to like create more stories where I'm like, what does it look like for us to lean into a lot of these things? For example, like I really am interested in what it looks like for Black characters in horror films specifically.
Hmm.
What does it look like for us to like lean into monstrosity, like, and not
Hmm.
necessarily lean into it for the sake of just being terrible, but
Hmm.
even that in itself could be a story? Because I'm like, the thought of just being just for being sake is not something
Right.
that we're afforded in real life. So I'm like, how can we like cultivate some sort of like understanding about ourselves, or at least provide some sort of catharsis for ourselves and like just doing stuff just because, like, no
Mhm.
real meaning behind it at all other than I wanted to.
Yes. Right.
But then also leaning into it to say, hey, I'm going to be seen as this anyways, even if I am striving to do good or to be better.
Mhm.
You're still going to call me what you want. So I
Right.
really would love to start creating more stories that kind of like is
Hmm.
a lean in and a like a flipping on its head, like a, yeah, yeah, that's what you said. I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna flip it, I'm gonna chop it up, stuff it, do whatever I want to do to it, and repackage it for something that actually makes more sense and is more reflective of me being a nuanced person, as opposed to just this one-dimensional being that you've already made up in your mind about me being.
That's well said. Well said. So, industry and collaboration. So, tell me,
Mhm.
what are some of your favorite collaborators, and what have you learned from working with them?
I really do feel like my favorite collaborators are my friends.
Okay, good.
Um, and I think it's just because like I don't think any of us have really been like striving super, super, super hard to like make it to like these extremely mainstream areas, just simply
Right.
because I think in us having our experiences with them, because I think at this point, a lot of us have all kind of had like some sort of like big or like high level industry experience. And I think us realizing like, hey, like this is cool,
Right.
like this is, it's exciting and it's affirming, especially when, like the goal in this industry is to like quote unquote make it. And, by
Mhm.
make it, it's like, let me be mainstream, let me be wide known, let me make the money that is reflective of the work and like the people that I'm working with or working on. So,
Right.
um, and that is a very exciting thing to accomplish and to reach. But I think a lot of us are like also keeping in mind, like, hey, at the end of the day, this could be a one-time job. This could be
Mhm.
a permanent job, but whatever it will be, like I still just want the opportunity to create the way that I want and like
Yeah.
be reflective of the people who I feel like deserves to see it. So
Yes.
I think a lot of us are always just really just eager to do our own things, even if that means like it's not gonna get that like extremely high level praise and recognition.
Mhm.
Like I think that's what's driving us at all. I think a lot of us are driven by really just wanting to bring a lot of what we see in our heads out in front of us and be proud of the work that we're able to put into getting it there. So
Right.
I would say a
Yeah.
lot of the times my favorite collaborators are my friends for sure.
I love that. That's community. I love that. That's community
Mhm.
driven. That's impact for me too, So that's
Yes.
beautiful. Then how do you balance your creative freedom with expectation of studios, producers, or audiences, or even with your crew, with your community?
Yeah. So at least this far into my and I would really say that my film journey in general, like if I had to kind of like put an age on it, this is about like my 6th year of doing this work, and really honestly 5, because I didn't really get my first. And actually, no, I would lie. I'm lying again. I think it'd probably be about 4 years at being at like a level of like super high level industry things, like, and by that I just mean like I'm now being able to reach more platforms that I wasn't able to reach at one point in time, but even then that's not all the time in itself.
Mhm.
But I would say that's roughly been since like 4 years since I've had like my, quote unquote like big moment. um
Okay.
and I feel like I'm still like really trying to learn a lot about this industry, like because I didn't go to film school, and a lot of the people that I work with haven't done that either, but there are
Mhm.
friends of mine who have done the work and gone to school, um and like really gotten all the basics and techniques and foundational understandings of it. So like I always respect what they have to say about the status of the industry and where they shifting to. um and I feel like a lot of us, like even then, would just be like, look, at the end of the day, you want to make something, you want to get something done, we just gonna all have to band together and get it done. Like, because as you can see, the state of Hollywood is undergoing a serious death and rebirth cycle right now.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yes, and I think for a lot of people, like that's been very disheartening for like, especially people who've been like grinding it out for years and years and like
Right.
have dedicated so much of their time and energy into like making it to those spaces and actually like
Mhm.
honing in on their craft. And it's disheartening because it's like you got people who genuinely don't love the industry. You have people who don't
Mhm.
genuinely love the art making process of creating a film,
Yeah.
and have really kind of like sucked a lot of the life that we need in it. And I feel like a lot of that life has been harnessed now in independent filmmaking, which is why I do feel like there is such a surplus of like indie films now, or like just like small level production companies that are just like, look, let's get this done.
Mhm.
We're gonna work with what we got, and it's gonna be great.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I think it's us now making that decision on like what the film industry looks like, and
Yes.
not really being distraught when you have these high level executives that are just like, oh well, that's not going to sell. And you have us now being like, well, okay, it's still getting done.
Hmm.
Like
That's
it's
why I
still
love the
happening.
indie space.
Like it's
But
still happening. So I mean,
yeah.
whoever. um and it's been great to
Mm.
like to see that, like, and feel that energy. Like it just feels like it's a lot of buzzing and like budding energy that's like, look, let's change lives however that may look, and it doesn't always need to look at like, oh, I'm selling 360 million in the theaters, or like this film was shot on a $50 million budget. Like, no, like this film was shot on a $200 budget. um
Right.
we had people come in and make food to make sure we were all kept kept nourished on set. Somebody literally went to their local library, we rented out a camera, and boom, now we have a film that's running films, film festivals. Like we're
Mm.
networking, we're trying to get out there. Um,
That's exactly why I love the indie space. I think it allows you the freedom for that too, that you don't have to worry about the big budgets. You can work with your community and your crew, so
mhm.
it's a beautiful space to be in.
It's beautiful. And I think it also reminds people like, regardless of what filmmaking has evolved into, it's always communal. Like
Always.
you are always going to need someone. You're all like, no one person is pulling a film off by themselves. And if they are, kudos to you. But even then, it's still better when it's everybody, because
Yes.
it's
Hmm.
just like there's a job for everybody. I always tell people, I'm like, this is the one industry where like it is literally a job for everybody. You don't want to be an actor? Cool. What do you want to do behind the scenes? You don't want to do anything behind the scenes? Cool. What can you help out with in post-production? Oh, you like marketing? Cool. Come over here because we need trailers, we need marketing materials, we need
Yeah.
it. Like it's something for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, and I just love that so much, because even people who probably never even thought they'd end up in film are doing things where it's just like, look, I don't even handle anything creative process wise. I'm doing legal entertainment. Like that,
Mm.
that's amazing to me. Like you have lawyers
Yeah.
that are literally like entertainment contract lawyers. And I'm just like, what does that look like? Like how is
Right.
that different
Right.
from your different caseload or client? But it's amazing to know like it's so much to do in film, and all of that could be done just to get one film done.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So then what advice do you have for aspiring Black women writers and directors who want to break into horror? Any advice you'd offer?
Um, I'm gonna tell them what I'm always told. You have to watch horror. You have to watch it.
Right.
There isn't there isn't a shortcut. Like, and
Right.
honestly, it's fun. Like, why wouldn't you want to watch the films that you want to make, you know?
Right.
Like, you have to watch film if you want to do film.
Well said.
Reading, if there's any reading material, like I feel like when you're trying to create a story and you can't come up on anything, it's because you don't have enough stimulating your imagination. So
Hmm.
reading is going to be very helpful. And even if it's not just strictly in horror, like you can flip any story into a horror story. um find what is actually resonating with you, something that you'd want to see, and then figure out the techniques on how to create that story specifically if you wanted to do horror. But I would say between watching horror, reading, um, to really understand what it is you're doing. And I think with any industry, like you have to know the rules before you can break them.
Well
So
said.
I feel like we have a lot, and I have to tell myself this too, because I feel like my first thought is always to come in and be like, what's something that I haven't seen a lot of, or something like that. And it's like, I don't think that that's necessarily a bad approach, but if you do not know the foundational things, such as what are characteristics of that make a horror film,
Hmm.
like, I feel like a lot of the time people want to come to horror film, and it's so funny that it's a joke. But even that stems from just like a couple different places. But the jokes of like, see, this is why Black people can't be in horror movies because we gonna leave before they start.
Yeah,
And
right.
and I'm like, in real life, yes, we are. But
Absolutely.
horror film, you kind of have to downplay that logic
Yes, you
or that common
do.
sense, because otherwise the story doesn't work.
Yeah, it wouldn't be scary.
It wouldn't be scary. Or
You're right.
you have your character that's like
Yeah.
hearing moans and groans from down the alleyway that's
Right.
misty and foggy and ain't nobody else in sight. Like in real life, you're not going towards it. So
Right.
in a horror film there, but like in a horror film, you kind of gotta have that person that's like, I don't know, y'all. I think we should go check it out.
Yeah. Right. You have to.
They might die first, which that was a common thing too in horror films, of like you having your Black characters that's like now serving as like punching bags for like the creatures, or like for this thing that's attacking the rest of the group. Like you kind of got to have that person that's like, hey, I know everybody else gut is telling them not to do it, but mine is telling me to do it. Like
Yeah.
without that person or without those people in those films,
Hmm.
I don't have horror films.
I always say that. That's very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now the only thing is, it should not always be the Black person.
Right. Yeah, of course. Right.
Um, and so, and even then, I think Black people in horror, like we've always loved horror. Like Black people have always loved horror. Like hello, I think a lot
Right.
of us have called for. for us to not always be these like very stereotypical characters, like whether we're the side bestie
Hmm.
or like the sacrificial lamb or like
Right.
the beautiful Negro in these a lot of these films where it's like
Oh, the
well,
only one.
our only purpose is to serve either the white protagonist
Yes.
or just to a buffer for the film, or in a lot of cases where even if we're not the first people to die or we're not sacrificing ourselves so the
Hmm.
white person can get away in the film, like
Right.
we're the test of strength for the creature that we're battling.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like, oh, like how do you actually know you got a strong monster? Put him in a fight with the black person.
Right. Right.
Oh, like that's not how this works. Like, and
Right.
inherently what that is like a lot of, again, racial stereotypes, a lot of
Yeah.
racial understandings about like how black people operate. Can black people take pain? Are black people really really tough like that? Like that's not what our characters should be doing all the time in horror films.
Yes. Okay.
um and so
Hmm.
I think a lot of us now, especially who are like trying to really cement ourselves or further immerse ourselves in
Hmm.
the genre, are like really trying to flip a lot of things on its head. So I think that's why
Yes.
you do have a surplus now of like black horror films that are actually not necessarily like our typical, like, oh, the Wolfman or anything
Hmm.
like that. Like, but you have a lot of black horror films now that are like trying to address a lot of the things that we
Hmm.
endure on a day-to-day basis. And I think what really sparked a lot of that for sure was Jordan Peele's Get Out for sure. I think
Oh,
we
right.
definitely
Of
start to see
course.
a lot of horror films after that that wanted to reflect on Black experience, like Black life,
Hmm.
and how there can be horror in that as well. But um I also feel like we'll probably have another shift. I don't know when. Because
Yeah.
now even that's getting critique from people. It's just like, oh my gosh, yes, but like I'm tired of like us having black horror films that's like us being black, like us being black is the horror. Like, and
Right.
in hindsight, I do get that and I do
Hmm.
respect that.
Yes.
But I think it also just goes to say like there's so much that is happening
Hmm.
within people's black experiences, because we're not all the same. We're not all
Hmm.
living the same life. But I think a lot of
Right.
people are like also using that as a way to process what's happened to them or what's been happening to them. And it's unfortunate, but I think we will see a lot more of that because
It's
yeah,
personal.
like
It's our personal
it's personal,
experiences.
right? It's our
Right.
personal journeys and our personal
Yeah.
experiences.
So that actually leads me into the personal and cultural impact then. So this is the other segment. So what has been the most rewarding moment of your career so far then?
Honestly, so this was in 2023 during our film festival here in Milwaukee. But the creator of The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, I
Hmm.
had a chance to sit down with him and talk with him, Bomani J. Story, who is the creator and writer of that film. And initially, I was presented with the idea for me to like create some sort of like curriculum or like companion guide for it, and I was like, yeah, because like I ain't did nothing for horror in like a couple years now, so like throw it on me.
Right. Right.
I was just told that it was going to be used in a lot of the teen screening programs through the organization, who were going to take their students to see the film. And so they were just like, yeah, we just wanted something supplemental to provide them with for the film. Um and I was like, of course, like I can do that, no problem. But what I did not know
Mhm.
is that the creator was going to see it. And so I was
Oh.
like, oh, y'all mean like he read it? Oh, y'all mean so and he actually ended up sharing it with a lot of his team. And his actress, the lead actress in the film, actually also had a chance to see it too. And I was like, whoa. So
Hmm.
I was like, hold up, hold up, hold up, hold up. I was like, this was just supposed to be for the teens. I was excited enough that they wanted it, or that they would be excited to have it as an accompaniment for the film. But
Right.
being able to sit down with him and talk about it, he was like, yeah, he was like, I read it. He was like, and my team loves it.
Hmm.
And
Nice.
it was that in that moment too. I was like, oh gosh, like I really love this. Like I love
Yeah.
doing this. Is like, because not only is it fun, but like just to kind of like further enrich people's like understanding of horror, and like maybe even be like, hey, like spark an idea for somebody else, like it did for me years ago or 5 years ago when I was like I got to do something with these passions. I got to figure out a way to do it. Like maybe that could also be that moment for somebody else too. So I think anytime that the work is done and people can see it, people can interact with it, I'm happy. Because again, to me, I look at it as like this is something that's in my head
Hmm.
and I'm doing the work to bring it out and now I get to share it. So I think anytime I can share the work with people is my proudest moment.
Beautiful, beautiful. So then, how do you see the intersection of horror and social commentary shaping the future of the genre? I know you started getting into it, so I'm just wanted
Hmm.
to know.
Yeah, I definitely think horror's always been a commentary. You know,
Right.
like even for instance, like I was saying when I was reading through George Romero's interview, like Dawn of the Dead is a commentary on consumerism, like mass
Hmm.
consumerism, like essentially the deletion of empathy for one another because we're so wound up in what we think we should be doing, what we should be consuming. And so like it's essentially like even though it is kind of been removed from its roots, but it's just like we're also, in a sense, becoming very mindless. Like we're
Right.
not in control of a lot of these impulses anymore. Or I mean, we are, but like it feels like we're not, you know, like and
Mhm.
essentially that's what the zombie stems from. Is like not being in control of yourself, serving to do somebody else's bidding. And I'm just like, that's literally what's happening right now, you
Mhm.
know, in this current landscape and even other landscapes before.
Right.
So I think, you know, horror has always done a good job at commenting on, you know, the ills of society. Um, and I mean, like the way it's done, I think can either be like super dark, super funny, or like you have that cross between like dark comedy or dark or like comedy horror now that's like
Right.
doing the commentary, but like in a very satirical, entertaining way. I think horror literally can give you so many versions of itself, but I think at the heart of it, it's always commenting on something.
Right. So true. Yes. So now it's actually so now legacy and vision. I feel like you go smoothly into the next section, but what legacy do you hope to leave in the horror genre?
Um, I love that question because honestly, I feel like I don't know. I feel like sometimes when I do this work, I don't even think long term all the
Mm,
time. Like, you know, I'm thinking like in that moment, like what can I help with in this moment? But I think if I had to stretch my mind some years beyond me, I would love to be just one of those creators that makes super dope horror, super dope film in general. Cause you know, I do love other genres. I know people are, I
right.
was like, is it just horror that you love? And I'm like, no, I love film, I
Right.
love drama, I love comedy, I love action,
Right.
sci-fi. I was like, I love film. I love what I love. But horror does have a special place for me. But I think I just really want to be one of those filmmakers that's like can that is flexible, that can move about different genres effortlessly, that understands the rules of them but also like can tweak them in a way to like give people new viewing experiences.
Mm,
um and I think just with my work in impact production for the last few years now, like that's something I would love to continue, especially for projects that I'm like this deserves longevity, like this deserves people to engage with this film beyond just the theaters, so
right.
or beyond their local screenings. Like I really want to continue doing impact production as well as just creating stories that like just give people something new, give
Nice.
people something to learn, something to go off of. um yeah, I think that that would be one of the markers of my legacy that I would love to have.
Nice. Nice. And so then what do you think the future holds for Black women in horror genre specifically, both behind and in front of the camera? Any
Oh,
thoughts on that?
we're coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Look,
Right.
you know, like we're here already, but like I definitely see a surplus of it coming. I literally actually just had a chance to go and see The Woman in the Yard last week.
Me too.
And honestly, I hate the fact that it's getting so many mixed reviews because I think to see and like I don't want to give too much away, especially for
Right.
people
I
who
know.
haven't.
Yeah. I haven't said too much. I'm waiting for people to see it.
Yeah, and but
Yeah.
like just to kind of see the reviews it was getting, and I was just like, I mean, like on one hand, yes, I get it. Every subgenre in horror is not for everybody. This being
Right.
more like the supernatural side of things, so I think a lot of people are also just like, so what's going on? And instantly, I don't know if it's just my filmmaker brain, but instantly when I seen it, I said, oh, this is a manifestation of like her grief.
Yes, that's what I thought
Like
too.
that was the
Right.
first thing that hopped out at me. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was actually hoping to be wrong because I was like, dang, I hate coming in here figuring it out. But
Before it even gets started, right?
right. But I mean, like, even for me, like that still doesn't take away from like my viewing experience.
Yeah.
But in
Mhm.
fact, I think it helps when people like again, like the thing I said about like having to know the rules before you can break them, like even though people, want this completely like I don't want to know what's going on at all. And I was just like, yes, but in hindsight, like you wouldn't be satisfied in life if everything you thought you were gonna get right was actually right.
Right.
Like, or you
Yeah.
would be satisfied if you didn't know nothing at all. Like, you want to be right
Hmm.
about something sometimes. And I feel like that's a part of like knowing the rules of horror. Like, even if it is going to be like, oh, that's a dead giveaway, I'm bored. It's like, you're only bored because you got it right. But, like in hindsight, it's not that you're bored because you got it right. It's you're bored because you haven't allowed the rest of the story to develop. Like you just got that one thing right and it was like, cool, that's the movie. No,
Right.
that's not it. And
Right.
even if it is it, I'm just like, you still have to respect the craft. You still have to respect the work that goes into putting this together. And I'm like, you ain't gotta like every single thing.
Yeah. Because it's not
But
easy.
yeah, I just think
Yeah.
it's tough to see people like just come down hard on it. Cause I'm like,
Yeah.
it's one thing to not like it, but like I've seen people that's like, oh, this was the worst movie I've ever seen. I was like, you're lying. You're you're absolutely lying. There was a scene in there where like she was having like she was in her current reality, but she was having a flashback. Like the way
Yeah.
that she did that scene, I was like, that was gorgeous.
It was
The,
beautiful. Beautifully
it was
shot too.
I said the
Yeah.
camera work in that movie was
It was,
delicious.
yeah, it was. The
I was
lighting, they did a really good job with the lighting.
Oh, it was so good. It felt like a good old Southern Gothic, like modern horror film. And I'm just
Right.
like, y'all gotta give things a chance.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. And then I think also a lot of people were just like, I didn't get the ending. I was like, I got it. And I was like, even if I didn't, I went like, I think
I
my
had to
first,
go look it up.
yes, yes, exactly. My first mind is to always go look it up. And
Right.
like,
Yeah.
I have a lot of my theories that are swirling at the time that I'm watching it, but I
Right.
always love to go and follow up and just confirm
Yes.
or learn something new. Um, and
Same
I think
thing.
I think that has been because of like a lot of the work that I've been doing behind the scenes. So, for a while now in film of just like providing or being that person that's now giving you that additional layer of understanding. And I was like, I
Hmm.
think that's beautiful. Like if your first thought is to go look it up, then the film did its job.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
creators did their job because it's
Right.
supposed to make you think, it's supposed to make you search for more, want to learn more.
Right.
Even if you come to the answer, you're just like, oh, okay, cool. Either
Yeah.
way, you still put the work in to go and understand what was going
Mhm.
on, or
Yes.
like to
Right.
ask questions. And I think
Exactly.
a lot of people have forgotten like art in general is supposed to make you ask questions.
Exactly. Yes. So now, so if you can collaborate with any writer or director in history, past, present, who would it be and why?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. I love that one.
Um, I mean, of course, Jordan Peele, he's just amazing.
He is.
Um, But there are some other like filmmakers, maybe not even at this super high level, but there's a film that I love that I go back to all the time. Um, the filmmaker her name is Jenna Kiru. And she had this short film that is what was Black is Rebirth. I'm messing up on the name and I know better. Um,
It's okay.
but I go back to that film all the time. I watched it for the first time in 2018 in one of my African-American studies classes, and we were talking about like blackness in visual arts. And that film, or I think it's like Rebirth is Necessary, is the name of her
Oh,
film,
River.
actually.
Okay, that
By
sounds
Jenna
familiar.
Kier. I would love to work with her. She's
Okay.
amazing. Um, I really don't want Zack Snyder to make the second version of Army of the Dead without me on set. So
Okay.
if somebody knows Zack Snyder can get me over to Zack Snyder, please do
Yes.
because I
Please make that
need
connection.
to be on set
Okay.
Army of the Dead
Put
too.
that
I
call
need to
out.
be there.
Right.
Please. Zack,
Okay.
don't leave me out.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully somebody will respond to that one too. Yeah.
Yes,
You never
please don't
know.
leave
You
me
never
out.
know.
And then even just even not off name, like I'm just down to work with more filmmakers that truly love film, that truly love horror, that truly love creating just bomb stories. Like I'm just looking forward to working with filmmakers in general. Like any filmmaker that aligns with that. Um, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so on that note, any favorite horror films? Your top three.
This is so hard. Okay, people probably gonna be like, girl, that's not a horror movie. But I need y'all to understand this was the first time I've seen anything remotely close to horror. So I
Mhm.
always credit it as my number one. Blade, hands down, is my number one. Um, oh goodness. Uh this one I think is gonna be a little twist on the head too, because I don't even think a lot of people would consider this horror as well. But I think as of recently, a lot of conversations I've seen, they have been. But Eve's Bayou.
Yes.
Um, love Eve's Bayou. I had no business watching that as early as I did. I have no regrets.
Right. That
I
was a
have
good one.
no regrets. Um, and honestly, oh, top three, that's so hard.
Yeah, I know that's a hard one. I can't even answer it.
I'm struggling to answer.
Right?
I'm like, definitely those top two for sure. Like, I won't argue against those, but this one, oh my gosh. The Resident Evils. I can't go without them.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, those were good. They were all good.
I can't go without the rest. I think honestly, Resident Evil spiked my like, look, I need me a superhero black woman in a zombie apocalypse film because
Right.
Alex, for me, like that was my hero. Like, and to know Alice wasn't even in the video games, but like they just created her character for the film.
Hmm.
And like Mila Jovovich is just such an amazing actress. Like I love her. So I think like Alice was kind of really setting the stage for me now to be asking the questions about like where are black women and girls in film, like zombie
Hmm.
films like that. And I feel like they got a little bit at it, with Celine in 28 Days Later. Oh, I hope they bring her back for 28 years. But I
Right.
don't know if they will. Um, and then of course, baby girl that was in The Girl with All the Gifts, like she did such an amazing
Oh,
job
yes. Yes,
in
right.
that
Yeah.
film. And even just her character, like her actually being a zombie, but like also like still having like this level of just like empathy. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is great. This is a great
Yeah.
film. Um,
That's good.
yeah, I
Love
want to
that.
see I want to see more films for us like that.
Yes, yes. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I can't go wrong with either of those. So before we wrap up, I just wanted to know if you had any last words, anything that you would like to share that we didn't talk about.
I really thank you for having me on to talk, because I think at least now, like working in film for the few years that I have been, like I still feel like a student, like a really like a hardcore like baby freshman sometimes.
Uh,
So I don't be ready to like speak on a lot of stuff until I feel like I've hit this level, but I'm realizing like I'm like the experience is giving me a lot of the knowledge that I've been able to
right.
have to speak on now. And I'm gonna choose to be proud of that. So I'm gonna
Exactly.
continue to learn
Yes.
and be grateful to be able to share that with people. But I really
Right.
appreciate you asking me on today, because I realize anytime I can
Absolutely.
talk about it, I actually do feel right at home.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, we're all students. We're still learning, you know.
Yeah.
And you gotta definitely claim that because because you're a filmmaker. So and I'm happy to have thank you for spending time to be with me. I want to make sure
Exactly.
that people can stay in touch with you. So please share how people can stay in touch with you, any
Yes,
contacts, yeah, projects you're working on, how they can support. Just share that.
absolutely. So yes, I'm most active on my Instagram, which is at Breanna. That's spelled Bred as in David, Ioni. I'm relatively active on there. I'll drop updates and stuff on like my stories. But then also for my film page in holding, it's on Instagram as well as Facebook at In Holding Love Story.
Mm.
And we're actually moving relatively officially smooth in our post-production process. Shout out to our editor Brandon, who's been doing an amazing job. He was also our gaffer on set. So Brandon has been doing some amazing work to really bring this film home. And I feel like we'll have some updates soon. So if you are interested and want to check it out, make sure you follow us over there at that page, and as well as my personal page. And I also have my website, which is linked in my Instagram page. I would have gave y'all the website link, but y'all didn't have to pay for Wix. And they didn't change my domain. So it used to be Breanna.com, but now it's like Breanna T26 at Wix.com or something like that. So all that to say, just keep the link in my Instagram bio.
Yeah, they can still touch base with you. I appreciate you so much, Breanna. Thank you so much
Yes.
for spending the time to interview with me. I appreciate you being here, and I wish you all the best in your journey. I'm looking forward to being in touch as well, so please
Yes,
stay in touch.
absolutely. We got to
Yes,
stay in touch.
yes. And so thank you everybody for listening to Black Women in Horror podcast, and stay tuned for the next episode coming soon. Thanks, Breanna.
Thank you.